The fluorescent lights of the distribution center flickered one last time before dying completely. In the sudden darkness, Malik Carter heard his boss's voice cut through the chaos, calm, commanding, impossible to ignore. Everyone stays put until we know it's safe. But when the emergency generators failed and the temperature began to drop, that same voice would make him an offer that would unravel everything he thought he knew about survival, loneliness, and the terrifying possibility of letting someone in. What happened next would force two people who'd spent years building walls around their hearts to choose between the safety of isolation and the risk of something real. If you're watching from Chicago, Miami, Atlanta, or anywhere in between, drop your city in the comments and smash that like button so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me tell you about the night everything changed. The rain came down in sheets, turning the parking lot into a battlefield of puddles and broken asphalt. Malik Carter stood under the thin overhang of the distribution center's side entrance, watching water cascade off the edge like a curtain separating him from the rest of the world. His phone screen glowed in his hand. 7:47 p.m. The last bus had left 12 minutes ago. He'd known he was going to miss it. The shipment had come in late, and when Marcus twisted his ankle loading pallets, Malik had stayed to help finish. That was just who he was, the guy who stayed, who stepped up, who never complained. 6 years at Green Logistics, and he'd perfected the art of being reliable. Invisible, but reliable. "Damn it," he muttered, scrolling through the rideshare app. Surge pricing had kicked in, $23 for a 15-minute ride. He had $41 in his checking account until Friday, and Devin needed new shoes. The ones he had were holding together with duct tape and prayer. Malik closed the app and tilted his head back against the concrete wall. The cold seeped through his work jacket, but he barely noticed. Cold was just another thing you got used to, like the ache in your lower back from lifting boxes all day, or the hollow feeling in your chest when you came home to an empty apartment and realized you'd been alone for so long you'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone ask how your day went. 3 years. 3 years since Janelle died, and sometimes it felt like 3 lifetimes. Other times, it felt like yesterday, like he could still hear her laugh, still smell her perfume on the pillowcase he'd finally forced himself to wash. He shook his head, clearing the thought. No point going down that road tonight. He had to figure out how to get home, check on Devin with his mother, and maybe eat something before passing out. That was the plan. That was always the plan. "Malik?" He turned sharply. Amara Reed stood in the doorway, her coat already on, car keys in her hand. She looked at him with those dark, assessing eyes that seemed to see straight through whatever mask you were wearing. It was unnerving as hell, especially when you worked for her. "Ms. Reed?" He straightened automatically. Even off the clock, even soaking wet in a parking lot, she commanded respect without trying. "What are you still doing here?" She stepped closer, frowning as she glanced at his phone. "Missed your bus?" "Yes, ma'am. It's fine, though. I'll figure something out." She studied him for a moment, and Malik had the distinct impression she was calculating something, weighing options, making decisions in that quick, efficient way she approached everything. Amara Reed didn't waste time. She didn't waste words. In the 2 years since she'd been promoted to operations manager, she'd transformed Green Logistics from a struggling warehouse into one of the most efficient facilities in the district. She was 25 and already had people twice her age taking orders from her without question. Malik respected the hell out of her. He was also slightly terrified of her. "Get in," she said finally, nodding toward the parking lot. "I'll give you a ride." "Oh no, ma'am. That's not necessary. Malik." She fixed him with a look that could have frozen the rain mid-fall. "It's pouring, it's late, and I'm not leaving one of my best workers stranded in a parking lot. Get in the car." It wasn't a request. 5 minutes later, Malik sat in the passenger seat of her Honda Accord, acutely aware of how much water he was dripping onto her floor mats. The heat was on full blast, and the radio played something smooth and jazzy that he wouldn't have expected from her. Then again, he didn't know what he expected. Despite working together for 2 years, he knew almost nothing about Amara Reed beyond her reputation for running a tight ship and her ability to solve problems before most people even knew they existed. "Where am I dropping you?" she asked, pulling out of the lot with the practiced ease of someone who'd driven these streets 1,000 times. "Parkview Gardens, Building C." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "You live in Parkview?" "Yes, ma'am." She didn't say anything else, but Malik could read the subtext. Parkview Gardens was where you lived when you were one missed paycheck away from homelessness. It was where single mothers worked double shifts and old men sat on broken benches watching the neighborhood slowly crumble. It was where Malik had ended up after selling the house, the one he and Janelle had bought together, the one full of memories he couldn't afford to keep. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the rhythmic swish of windshield wipers. Malik stared out the window, watching the city blur past in streaks of neon and shadow. "You have a son, right?" Amara asked suddenly. Malik glanced at her, surprised. "Yes, ma'am. Devin. He's 6. Who's watching him tonight?" "My mother. She lives in the same building, 2 floors down." Amara nodded slowly. "That's good. Having family close." There was something in her voice, a softness he'd never heard before. It made her seem less like the untouchable boss and more like an actual person, someone who maybe understood what it was like to piece together childcare and work schedules and hope nothing fell apart. "You have a daughter," Malik said quietly. It wasn't a question. He'd seen the photo on her desk, a little girl with braids and a gap-toothed smile, wearing a pink dress and holding a stuffed elephant. "Zoe, she's 5. Amara's voice warmed when she said the name. "She's staying with my aunt tonight." "That's good. Having family close." Amara smiled, actually smiled, and for a moment the carefully constructed professional distance between them dissolved. They were just 2 people trying to survive, to raise their kids, to make it through another day without breaking. The moment didn't last long. Amara's phone buzzed in the cup holder. She glanced at it, frowned, and pulled over to the curb. The rain was coming down harder now, drumming against the roof like 1,000 urgent fingers. "Everything okay?" Malik asked. "Power outage," she said, reading the text. "My aunt's building just lost electricity. She can't watch Zoe in the dark without heat." She was already typing a response, her jaw tight with the kind of stress Malik recognized intimately. The stress of scrambling, of recalculating, of trying to hold everything together when the world kept throwing curveballs. "I need to go pick her up," Amara continued, more to herself than to him. "But my place is out too, same grid." She looked up suddenly. "What about Parkview? Do you have power?" Malik checked his phone. 3 missed texts from his mother, all sent within the last 10 minutes. "Power's out, baby." "Devin's fine, but it's getting cold. Building manager says it might be hours." His stomach dropped. Devin had been fighting a cough all week. The last thing he needed was to spend the night in a freezing apartment. "We're out too," he said quietly. Amara cursed under her breath, something Malik had never heard her do. She sat there for a moment, thinking, her fingers drumming against the steering wheel. Then she made a decision. "Okay, new plan. I'll take you to get Devin, then we'll pick up Zoe, and everyone's coming to my place." "But you said your power's out." "I have a fireplace, firewood, extra blankets. It's not ideal, but it's better than freezing." She was already pulling back into traffic, her tone brooking no argument. "You're not spending the night in a powerless apartment with a 6-year-old, Malik. Neither am I." He wanted to protest. He wanted to say he'd figure it out, that he didn't need help, that he'd been handling everything alone for 3 years and he could handle this too. But the truth was, he was tired. Bone-deep, soul-crushing tired. And the idea of not having to fight through this particular disaster alone felt like a lifeline he didn't have the strength to refuse. "Okay," he said quietly. "Thank you." Amara just nodded and drove faster. By the time they collected both kids and arrived at Amara's house, the storm had escalated from bad to catastrophic. Wind rattled the windows, and somewhere in the distance Malik heard the crack of a tree branch giving way. But inside, with the fireplace roaring and blankets spread across the living room floor, it almost felt like an adventure. Devin and Zoe had taken to each other immediately, the way kids do when they recognize a fellow traveler in the chaos of adult decisions. They were building a fort out of couch cushions now, giggling conspiratorially as they declared it the best fort in the whole world. Malik sat on the floor near the fire, watching them with a mixture of relief and something else, something that felt dangerously close to contentment. When was the last time Devin had laughed like that? When was the last time Malik had been somewhere that felt warm, not just temperature-wise, but in the way that mattered. Here. He looked up. Amara stood over him, holding out a mug of tea. She'd changed out of her work clothes into sweats and a Howard University hoodie, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked younger like this, less intimidating, almost approachable. Thank you. He took the mug, their fingers brushing briefly. The contact lasted less than a second, but Malik felt it all the way up his arm. Amara settled onto the floor beside him, close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something floral and clean. They sat in silence for a while, watching the kids play, listening to the storm rage outside. This is nice, Malik said finally. I mean, not the storm, but this. Having company. Devin doesn't get that much. Neither does Zoe, Amara admitted. It's hard, doing it alone. Everyone talks about how strong single parents are, how resilient. Nobody talks about how exhausting it is, how lonely. The honesty in her voice caught him off guard. This wasn't Boss Amara, the woman who ran morning meetings like military operations. This was just Amara, tired, human, real. Yeah, he said softly. It is. She turned to look at him, and in the firelight, her eyes held something he couldn't quite name. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. The knowledge that they were both fighting the same invisible war, just on different fronts. Can I ask you something? Malik said before he could stop himself. Sure. Why did you really bring us here? You could have just dropped me at home. You didn't owe me anything. Amara was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning. And sometimes, just having someone throw you a rope, even if you don't ask for it, makes all the difference. Malik's chest tightened. He wanted to say something profound, something that matched the weight of what she'd just shared. Instead, what came out was, "You're really beautiful." The words hung in the air like smoke. Malik's face went hot. I'm sorry. That was completely inappropriate. I shouldn't have... Malik. Amar's voice was calm, measured. She didn't look angry, but she didn't look pleased either. I appreciate the compliment, but I need you to understand something. I'm your boss. And even though we're sitting here in my living room, even though our kids are playing together, that doesn't change the professional boundary between us. Do you understand? He nodded quickly, mortified. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just remember where the line is. The moment shattered like glass. Malik stared into his tea, wishing the floor would open up and swallow him whole. Way to ruin everything, he thought bitterly. 1 minute of comfort and you had to go and make it weird. But then Amara did something unexpected. She reached over and squeezed his hand, brief, gentle, gone, before he could process it. For what it's worth, she said quietly, you're a good man, Malik Carter, a really good man, and your son is lucky to have you. Before he could respond, Devin came running over, dragging Zoe behind him. Mr. Malik, Miss Amara, you have to come see our fort. It has a secret password and everything. Amara stood, smiling down at the kids. Oh yeah? What's the password? You have to guess, Zoe giggled. As Malik watched Amara follow the kids across the room, laughing at their elaborate fort rules, something shifted inside him. It was small, barely noticeable, like the first crack in ice that's been frozen solid for years. He'd spent 3 years teaching himself not to feel, not to hope, not to want anything beyond the next paycheck and the next day of survival. But sitting there in the warmth of Amara's home, listening to his son laugh, watching this incredible woman be gentle with children and fierce with boundaries, Malik felt something dangerous stirring in his chest. Hope. The next morning, Malik woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a disorienting moment, he didn't know where he was. Then it all came rushing back. The storm, the power outage, Amara's calm directive to stay the night. He sat up, his neck stiff from sleeping on the couch. Across the room, Devin and Zoe were still passed out in their blanket fort, sprawled in the boneless way only children could manage. The fire had died down to embers. Good morning. Malik turned. Amara stood in the kitchen doorway, already dressed for work, 2 mugs of coffee in her hands. She looked like she'd been up for hours, put together, professional, back behind her walls. Morning, he said, accepting the coffee gratefully. What time is it? 6:30. Power's back on at both our places. I checked. Oh, good. Malik sipped his coffee, acutely aware of how rumpled he must look. I should get Devin ready. We'll get out of your way. You're not in my way, Malik. Amar's voice softened slightly. But we should probably head out soon. I need to drop Zoe at school before the morning meeting. Right, the morning meeting, where she was the boss and he was just another warehouse worker, where last night's vulnerability would be packed away and forgotten, replaced by professional distance and appropriate boundaries. It shouldn't have stung, but it did. They woke the kids, gathered their things, and drove through the quiet morning streets in a silence that felt heavier than the one from the night before. When Amara dropped Malik and Devin at their building, she offered a professional smile. See you at work, Malik. Yes, ma'am. And Ms. Reed, thank you for everything. She nodded once, then drove away. Devin chattered excitedly about the fort and his new friend Zoe all the way up to their apartment, but Malik barely heard him. He was too busy trying to figure out why watching Amara's taillights disappear felt like losing something he'd never actually had in the first place. The week that followed was aggressively normal. Amara ran her meetings, Malik loaded his trucks, and neither of them acknowledged the night they'd spent in front of her fireplace. It was professional, appropriate, exactly how it should be. It was also slowly driving Malik insane. He couldn't stop noticing things. The way Amara's jaw tightened when corporate sent down unreasonable quotas. The efficient grace with which she moved through the warehouse, solving problems before they became crises. The rare moments when her carefully controlled expression slipped, and he caught a glimpse of the exhaustion underneath. He noticed because he recognized it. He'd been wearing the same mask for 3 years, the one that said, "I'm fine. I've got this. I don't need help." Seeing it on someone else made him realize how transparent it actually was. On Thursday, Marcus cornered him during lunch break. "So what's going on with you and the boss?" Malik nearly choked on his sandwich. "What?" "Nothing. There's nothing going on. Man, please." Marcus grinned, completely unconvinced. "I've seen the way you look at her, like she hung the moon or something." "I don't look at her any kind of way." "You absolutely do. And you know what? I think she looks at you the same way when she thinks nobody's watching." Malik's heart did something complicated in his chest. "You're imagining things." "Maybe." Marcus shrugged. "But I've been working here longer than you, and I've never seen her smile at anyone the way she smiled at you yesterday when you fixed that inventory issue. Just saying." "Well, stop saying. She's my boss. It's inappropriate." "Lots of good things are inappropriate at first." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Just don't be stupid about it, yeah?" Malik didn't respond, mostly because he didn't trust himself to. That night, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling, he let himself think about it, really think about it. What would it even look like pursuing something with Amara? The power dynamic alone was a minefield. She could lose her job. He could lose his, and even if they navigated that somehow, what made him think she'd be interested? She'd drawn a clear line. She'd been kind, but firm. And yet, "You're a good man, Malik Carter." The way she'd looked at him in the firelight, the way her hand had felt in his, brief as it was, the way she'd opened her home without hesitation, not because she had to, but because she'd seen someone struggling and refused to look away. Malik turned over, punching his pillow into a more comfortable shape. He was being ridiculous, reading into things that weren't there. Amara Reed was his boss, and she'd been clear about boundaries, and that was the end of it. Except it didn't feel like the end. It felt like the beginning of something terrifying and inevitable, and Malik had no idea what to do about it. Friday morning started like any other. Malik clocked in at 6 a.m. sharp, grabbed his scanner, and headed to his section. The warehouse hummed with its usual controlled chaos, forklifts beeping, voices calling out inventory numbers, the rhythmic thud of boxes hitting conveyor belts. He'd been working for maybe 20 minutes when he heard the commotion near the loading bay. "Someone call 911!" Malik dropped his scanner and ran. A crowd had gathered around Bay 7. Malik pushed through and felt his stomach drop. Marcus was on the ground, his face gray, one hand clutched to his chest. Someone had already called the paramedics. Malik could hear sirens in the distance, but Marcus looked bad. Really bad. "Back up! Give him air!" Amara's voice cut through the panic like a blade. She was already on her knees beside Marcus, her phone to her ear, her other hand on his shoulder. Stay with me, Marcus. Help is coming. Just breathe, okay? Just keep breathing. Malik had never heard her voice shake before. The paramedics arrived within minutes. They loaded Marcus onto a stretcher, asking rapid-fire questions that Amara answered with the same efficiency she brought to everything else. But when the ambulance pulled away, lights flashing, she just stood there in the middle of the warehouse floor, looking suddenly very small. Everyone back to work, she called out, her voice steady again. Professional. I'll update you when I know more. The crowd dispersed slowly, everyone shaken. Malik hesitated, torn between following orders and the instinct screaming at him that Amara needed someone right now. Before he could decide, she turned and walked toward her office, her shoulders rigid. He followed. She was standing at her window when he knocked on the open door. Miss Reed? Not now, Malik. Are you okay? She didn't turn around. I'm fine. With all due respect, ma'am, you don't look fine. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, her shoulders sagged. He has 3 kids, she said quietly. Did you know that? Marcus has 3 kids, and a wife who just lost her job last month. And if something happens to him, her voice cracked. Malik made a decision. He stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. Hey, Marcus is strong. He's going to be okay. You don't know that. No, but I know panicking doesn't help anyone. And I know you've been carrying this whole place on your shoulders for 2 years, and maybe right now you need to let someone else carry a little bit of the weight. Amara finally turned to look at him. Her eyes were wet, but she hadn't let the tears fall. I'm supposed to be in control. I'm supposed to have answers. You're also human. Being in charge doesn't mean you can't be scared. She stared at him for a long moment. Then, to his shock, she crossed the small office and wrapped her arms around him. Malik froze. Then, carefully, he hugged her back. They stood like that for maybe 30 seconds. Long enough for Malik to feel her breathing slow, to feel the tension drain from her shoulders. Long enough for him to realize that this quiet moment of comfort, might be the most honest thing that had passed between them. When she pulled away, she wiped her eyes quickly and straightened her shirt. Thank you. Anytime. She gave him a look that was equal parts grateful and terrified. We can't do this, you know. Whatever this is. I know. The policy is very clear. I could lose my job. I know that too. So we're on the same page. Absolutely. Malik nodded. Completely professional. Appropriate boundaries. I got it. Good. They stood there, 3 feet apart, both knowing they were lying. Malik? Yeah? If I weren't your boss, Amara said quietly, if the circumstances were different, I'd want to know you better. She stopped herself. It doesn't matter. The circumstances are what they are. Right. Right. Neither of them moved. The moment stretched, fragile and impossible. Malik could feel his heart hammering against his ribs. All he had to do was take 3 steps. 3 steps, and he could kiss her. Consequences be damned. 3 steps, and he could find out if the electricity he felt between them was real or just wishful thinking. But he didn't move. Because Amara was right. The circumstances were what they were, and neither of them could afford to lose their jobs over a feeling that might not lead anywhere. I should get back to work, he said finally. Yeah, me too. Malik turned to leave, his hand on the door handle. Malik? He looked back. You're a good man, Amara said softly. I meant that. I know. You're pretty incredible yourself, Ms. Reed. He left before she could respond, closing the door quietly behind him. His hands were shaking. His whole body felt like a live wire, crackling with energy that had nowhere to go. Marcus was going to be okay. Malik heard the news an hour later. Minor heart attack, but he'd be all right with medication and rest. The relief that swept through the warehouse was palpable, but Malik couldn't stop thinking about the way Amara had felt in his arms, the way she'd looked at him like he was something solid in a world that kept shifting, the way his name sounded in her voice when she was being real instead of professional. He was falling for his boss, and from the look in her eyes, she was falling too, which meant they were both in serious trouble. The weekend passed in a blur of routine and restlessness. Malik took Devin to the park on Saturday, watched him climb the jungle gym with the fearless abandon of childhood, and tried not to think about Amara. He failed spectacularly. Sunday brought laundry, meal prep for the week, and a phone call from his mother asking if he was eating enough. He lied and said yes, picked at leftover pasta, and went to bed early only to stare at the ceiling until midnight. Monday morning arrived with the inevitability of a bill you couldn't pay. Malik clocked in, grabbed his assignment sheet, and tried to ignore the way his pulse quickened when he saw Amara's office door already open, the light on inside. She'd been there for hours, probably. That was her way. First one in, last one out, carrying the weight of the entire operation like it was hers alone to bear. The morning meeting was professional and efficient. Amara outlined the week's priorities, addressed concerns about equipment maintenance, and reminded everyone that corporate was sending a safety inspector on Thursday. Her voice was steady, her demeanor composed. If anyone else noticed the faint shadows under her eyes or the way her smile didn't quite reach them, they didn't mention it. Malik noticed. He noticed everything. "Carter, hang back for a minute," Amara said as the meeting dispersed. His stomach dropped. Here it comes, he thought. The conversation about boundaries. The reminder that Friday's moment in her office couldn't happen again. The professional distance she'd need to reestablish. He waited until the room cleared, then approached her desk. "Yes, ma'am." Amara looked up from her laptop, and something in her expression caught him off guard. She looked uncertain, an emotion he'd never associated with her before. "I wanted to thank you," she said quietly, "for Friday, for being there when I needed someone." "You don't have to thank me for that." "I do, actually, because you didn't have to stay. You could have gone back to work like everyone else." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I'm not good at asking for help, or accepting it, but you made it easier." Malik felt his chest tighten. "We all need someone sometimes, Ms. Reed, even people who look like they have everything under control." "Amara." He blinked. "What?" "When we're alone, you can call me Amara." She held his gaze, and there was something vulnerable in her eyes that made his breath catch. "Ms. Reed is for meetings and formal situations. But when it's just us, I'd like to hear my name." It was such a small thing, just a name, but the weight behind it felt enormous. An acknowledgement that whatever existed between them was real, even if they couldn't act on it. "Amara," he said softly, testing the shape of it. It felt right. She smiled, a real smile this time, the kind that transformed her entire face. "Better. Now get back to work before someone thinks I'm playing favorites." "Yes, ma'am. Yes, Amara." The smile widened. "Go." He went, but the warmth in his chest stayed with him all day. Tuesday brought rain again, though nothing like the storm that had upended everything 2 weeks ago. Malik was reorganizing inventory in Section C when he heard raised voices from the front office. He recognized one of them immediately, Amara, using the tone she reserved for people who'd pushed her too far. He shouldn't have gone to investigate. It wasn't his business. But his feet carried him toward the sound anyway. Through the office window, he could see Amara facing down a man in an expensive suit. Regional manager, Malik guessed from the corporate badge clipped to his belt. The man's face was red, his gestures aggressive. "Unrealistic expectations," Amara was saying, her voice ice cold. "You want us to increase output by 30% without additional staff or equipment. That's not a challenge, Mr. Peterson. That's setting us up to fail. Other facilities are managing just fine. Other facilities aren't dealing with aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance. I've sent you 3 reports outlining exactly what we need to meet those targets safely. You've ignored all of them." Peterson leaned forward, invading her space in a way that made Malik's hands curl into fists. "Maybe the problem isn't the facility, Ms. Reed. Maybe it's the person running it." The words hung in the air like poison. Amara didn't flinch. "If you're questioning my competence, I'd appreciate you doing it in writing so I can forward it to HR along with my documentation of every safety concern you've dismissed. Are you threatening me? I'm protecting my workers. There's a difference." Peterson's jaw worked silently. Then he straightened, smoothed his tie, and manufactured a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We'll revisit this conversation after the safety inspection. I'm sure we'll find some interesting areas for improvement. He left without another word, brushing past Malik in the doorway without acknowledgement. Malik watched him go, then turned back to find Amara slumped in her chair, her head in her hands. "How much of that did you hear?" she asked without looking up. "Enough." Malik stepped inside and closed the door. "He's an asshole." That startled a laugh out of her, short and humorless, but a laugh nonetheless. "Yeah, he really is." "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. This is just part of the job." But her hands were shaking when she reached for her water bottle. Malik pulled a chair over and sat down across from her. "Talk to me." "Malik?" "Amara." He kept his voice gentle but firm. "Friday you told me you're not good at asking for help. I'm not asking. I'm just here, so talk to me. So talk." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then slowly, the walls came down. "They're setting me up to fail," she said quietly. "Peterson and his bosses. They want to cut costs, so they're squeezing every facility until something breaks. Then they can blame local management and justify restructuring." She rubbed her temples. "I've seen it happen at 3 other warehouses in the past year. Good managers fired, replaced with people who'll push workers harder for less money. That's not going to happen here. You don't know that. I know you won't let it. You fight for this place. For all of us. What if fighting isn't enough?" The vulnerability in her voice nearly broke him. "What if I can't protect everyone? What if—" "Hey." Malik leaned forward, catching her gaze and holding it. "You're not alone in this. I know it feels like you are, but you're not. You've got a whole warehouse full of people who see how hard you work, who know you have our backs. That matters." Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like I'm just one bad inspection away from losing everything." "Then we make sure the inspection goes perfectly. We document everything, follow every protocol to the letter, and we show corporate exactly how well this place runs under your leadership." Amara's eyes glistened. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you do the same for me. Because you already have." He hesitated, then added quietly, "And because I care about what happens to you." The confession hung between them, fragile and dangerous. "Malik," Amara whispered, "we can't. I know all the reasons we can't, but that doesn't change the fact that I do. Care, I mean." She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with something that looked like longing and fear in equal measure. "This is such a bad idea. Probably the worst. I could lose my job. You could lose yours. I know. So what are we doing?" Malik had no answer for that. All he knew was that sitting here, seeing her struggle alone, felt fundamentally wrong, like watching someone drown and refusing to throw them a rope because the rulebook said civilians shouldn't attempt water rescue. "I don't know," he admitted, "but maybe we don't have to figure it all out right now. Maybe we can just be honest about what this is, what it's becoming." "And what is it becoming?" He met her eyes steadily. "Something real." Amara's breath hitched. For one suspended moment, Malik thought she might reach for him. Instead, she stood abruptly and walked to the window, putting distance between them. "We should focus on the inspection," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "That's what matters right now." It was a deflection, and they both knew it. But Malik understood the need for self-preservation. Some conversations were too dangerous to finish. "Whatever you need," he said, standing. "I'm here." She didn't turn around, but he heard her whisper, "I know." The rest of the week was consumed by preparation. Amara ran the warehouse like a military campaign, and Malik found himself pulled into her orbit more frequently. She needed someone to double-check inventory logs, to verify that safety equipment was properly maintained, to help reorganize the storage areas for optimal efficiency. He could have said no. Should have, probably, given how every interaction seemed to draw them closer. But he didn't, partly because the work needed doing, mostly because being near her had become as necessary as breathing. Wednesday evening found them working late again, the warehouse empty except for the security guard doing rounds. Malik was updating spreadsheets while Amara reviewed compliance documents, both of them fueled by coffee and determination. "Tell me about Devin," Amara said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. Malik looked up, surprised. "What do you want to know?" Everything. Anything. She set down her pen and gave him her full attention. You talk about him sometimes, but I feel like I only know the basics. What's he like? The question unlocked something in Malik's chest. He found himself talking about his son in a way he hadn't with anyone in years, about Devon's obsession with dinosaurs, his habit of asking why about everything, the way he still slept with the stuffed elephant his mother had given him before she died. He talked about the hard parts, too. The questions about why he didn't have a mom like other kids, the nightmares that came without warning, the overwhelming responsibility of being everything to someone so small. Amara listened like it mattered, like every word was important. He sounds amazing, she said when Malik finally ran out of stories. You're doing an incredible job with him. Most days I feel like I'm barely hanging on. That's parenthood. Amara smiled sadly. I feel that way about Zoe constantly, like I'm one mistake away from screwing her up forever. Tell me about her, Malik said gently. So she did. She talked about Zoe's love of art, the way she narrated everything she drew with elaborate stories. She talked about the guilt of missing school events because of work, the fear that she wasn't enough on her own. She talked about Zoe's father, a brief, honest description of a relationship that had ended badly, leaving Amara to build a life from scratch while pregnant and alone. Sometimes I look at her and I can't believe she's real, Amara confessed. This perfect little person who depends on me completely. It's terrifying. But you're doing it. You're raising her and running this place and holding everything together. So are you. With Devon, with this job. She paused. When's the last time someone asked if you were okay, Malik? The question hit him like a physical blow. I don't know. I can't remember. That's what I thought. Amara's eyes were soft with understanding. We're both so busy being strong for everyone else that we forget to check in with ourselves. Maybe that's why this feels so... Malik gestured helplessly between them. Whatever this is, because we see each other, the parts people usually miss. Yeah, Amara breathed. Yeah, I think you're right. The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Malik was acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how easy it would be to close the distance, how much he wanted to. Amara? His phone rang, shattering the moment. Malik grabbed it, saw his mother's number, and felt his heart drop. She never called this late unless something was wrong. Mom, what's wrong? Malik, baby, it's Devon. He's okay, but he can't stop coughing. I gave him the medicine you left, but it's not helping. He's asking for you. Malik was already on his feet. I'm coming. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He ended the call and looked at Amar helplessly. I have to go. I know, go! She was already gathering his things, shoving papers into his backpack with efficient urgency. Call me if you need anything. Amara, the inspection tomorrow doesn't matter. Your son comes first, always. She handed him his jacket, her eyes fierce. Go take care of him. Malik wanted to hug her, to say something that conveyed how much her understanding meant, but there wasn't time. He just nodded and ran. Devon was huddled on his grandmother's couch when Malik burst through the door, his small body racked with coughs that sounded wet and painful. Malik's mother looked worried in a way that sent alarm bells screaming through his head. How long has he been like this? Malik asked, scooping Devon into his arms. Started about an hour ago, got worse fast. His mother's voice shook. Malik, I think he needs the hospital. She was right. Malik could hear the wheeze in Devon's breathing, see the way his lips had a faint bluish tinge. This wasn't just a cough. Call 911, Malik said, forcing his voice to stay calm even as panic clawed at his throat. Tell them we need an ambulance for a pediatric respiratory emergency. The next hour was a nightmare of sirens and fluorescent lights and medical terminology Malik barely understood. Pneumonia, the ER doctor said. Serious enough to require admission. They were keeping Devon overnight, maybe longer, to monitor his oxygen levels and administer IV antibiotics. Malik sat beside his son's hospital bed, holding a small hand that felt too fragile, watching the rise and fall of a chest that labored too hard for each breath. Devon had finally fallen asleep, exhausted by the effort of breathing. But Malik couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything except watch and pray and make silent bargains with the universe. Not my son. Please. I've lost enough. Not him too. His phone buzzed. A text from Amara. How is he? Malik's eyes burned. He typed back with shaking hands. Pneumonia. They're keeping him overnight. Maybe longer. The response came immediately. I'm so sorry. What do you need? I don't know. I can't think straight. Where are you? Which hospital? St. Luke's. Room 412. I'm coming. Amara, you don't have to. I know. I'm coming anyway. Malik set down his phone and let his head fall into his hands. He was so tired, so scared, so completely overwhelmed by the reality that his son, his whole world, was sick and small and vulnerable in a hospital bed. He didn't know how long he sat there. Time had lost meaning somewhere between the ambulance ride, massage, and the admission paperwork. But eventually he heard soft footsteps and looked up to find Amara in the doorway, still in her work clothes, holding 2 coffee cups and a paper bag. Hey, she said quietly. You came. Of course I came. She set the coffee and food on the bedside table, then pulled a chair close to his. How's he doing? Sleeping. They say he's stable, but he looks so small. Malik's voice cracked. I can't lose him, Amara. I can't. You're not going to. He's strong, and he's getting the care he needs. You don't know that. You can't promise that. No, Amara admitted. I can't. But I can sit here with you so you don't have to go through this alone. Something broke open in Malik's chest. He'd been holding it together for hours, for years really, and suddenly he couldn't anymore. A sob tore free, then another, and then Amara's arms were around him and he was falling apart in a hospital chair while she held him together. I've got you, she whispered. It's okay. Let it out. So he did. He cried for Devin, for the fear that never really went away no matter how many years passed. He cried for Janelle, for all the ways life had been unfair and hard and relentless. He cried for himself, for the exhaustion of carrying everything alone. And through it all, Amara held him, strong and steady and present in a way that made him believe, for the first time in a long time, that maybe he didn't have to do this alone. When the storm finally passed, Malik pulled back, embarrassed. I'm sorry. That was human, Amara finished firmly. That was human, and you're allowed to be human, Malik. He wiped his eyes, feeling raw and exposed. The inspection is tomorrow. You should be sleeping, preparing. The inspection can wait. This can't. She brushed a tear from his cheek with her thumb, the gesture achingly gentle. You're more important than any inspection. I'm just another employee. You're not. The words came out fierce, almost angry. You're not just anything, Malik Carter. You're... She stopped herself, seeming to realize what she'd been about to say. I'm what? He asked quietly. Amara looked at him for a long moment. Then she took his hand and laced their fingers together. You're someone I care about. A lot. More than I should. More than is probably smart or professional or safe. She took a shaky breath. I know all the reasons this is complicated. I know the risks. But sitting here, watching you hurt, I realized I don't care about the complications anymore. I just care about you. Malik's heart hammered against his ribs. Amara, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens with the job, with corporate, with all of it, what I feel is real. You're real. He squeezed her hand, unable to find words big enough for what was happening in his chest. So instead, he just held on, and she stayed, sitting beside him in the sterile quiet of a hospital room, their fingers intertwined like a promise neither of them was quite ready to make out loud. Devin stirred in his sleep, coughed once, then settled. The oxygen monitor beeped steadily. Outside the window, the city lights blurred into abstract constellations, and for the first time since Janelle died, Malik felt like maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to face the darkness alone. Morning came too soon and not soon enough. Devin woke up around 6, still coughing, but more alert. The doctor came by during rounds and pronounced him improved. Good enough to maybe go home the following day if his oxygen levels stayed stable. Malik felt like he could finally breathe. Amara had left around 4 a.m., insisting she needed to shower and change before the inspection. But she'd stayed until Devin was deeply asleep, talking quietly with Malik about everything and nothing. about the books they'd loved as kids and the dreams they'd had before life got complicated, about Devin and Zoe and the terrifying privilege of raising tiny humans in an uncertain world. It had felt like falling, like standing at the edge of something vast and unknown and choosing to jump anyway. Now, watching Devin color in the activity book a nurse had brought, Malik's phone buzzed with a text. Inspection starts in an hour. Wish me luck. He typed back, "You don't need luck, you've got this. But I'm wishing it anyway. How's Devin?" "Better. Doctor thinks he can come home tomorrow." "That's wonderful. I'm so relieved. Thank you for last night, for being there. Always." That single word carried more weight than entire conversations. Malik stared at it, feeling the truth of it settle into his bones. "Daddy?" Devin's voice was still raspy but stronger than yesterday. "Who are you texting?" "A friend from work." "Is it Miss Amara? The one from the fortnight?" Malik's chest tightened. "Yeah, buddy, it's her. I like her. She's nice, and Zoe is really fun." Devin went back to his coloring. "You should be friends with her more." If only it were that simple, Malik thought. But maybe, in the way that mattered most, it was exactly that simple. Two people who saw each other, who understood the weight the other carried, who chose to show up when it mattered. Maybe everything else was just details they'd figure out along the way. The inspection went perfectly. Malik heard about it later from Marcus, who'd returned to light duty and was full of details. Amara had run the whole thing like a symphony, he said. Every question answered, every protocol demonstrated flawlessly. Even Peterson had looked grudgingly impressed. Malik felt a surge of pride so fierce it surprised him. Devin came home the next day with a bag full of medications and strict instructions for rest. Malik's mother fussed over him relentlessly, and Malik tried to focus on being grateful, on celebrating the fact that his son was okay. But he kept thinking about Amara, about the way she'd held him in that hospital room, about the confession she'd made in the early morning hours. "What I feel is real." Friday afternoon, after settling Devin with his grandmother for a nap, Malik made a decision. He drove to the warehouse even though it was his day off, parked in the lot, and walked inside with purpose he didn't entirely understand. Amara's office door was open. She was at her desk, laptop open, probably reviewing the inspection report for the 100th time. When she looked up and saw him, her whole face transformed. "Malik, what are you doing here? Is Devin?" "He's fine, home and resting." Malik stepped inside and closed the door. His heart was pounding. "I needed to see you." "Oh." She stood slowly, uncertainty flickering across her features. "About what?" He crossed the small space between them, giving her time to step back if she wanted. She didn't move. "You said what you feel is real," Malik said quietly. "I need you to know it's real for me, too. I don't know how we make this work. I don't know how we navigate all the complications, but I know I can't keep pretending this isn't happening." Amara's breath caught. "Malik, I'm falling for you, Amara. I've been falling since that night in the rain, and I don't know how to stop. I don't want to stop." For one terrifying moment, she just stared at him. Then she closed the remaining distance and kissed him. It was gentle and fierce all at once, her hands coming up to frame his face, his arms wrapping around her waist like he could anchor them both to this moment. She tasted like coffee and courage, and Malik felt something settle into place in his chest, something that had been misaligned and aching for 3 long years. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Amara rested her forehead against his. "We're going to have to figure this out," she whispered. "The job, the policies, all of it." "I know. It's going to be complicated." "I know that too. But you're still here." Malik pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "I'm still here." She smiled, radiant and a little bit scared and absolutely beautiful. "Then I guess we're doing this." "Yeah," Malik breathed. "I guess we are." Outside the office, the warehouse hummed with end-of-day activity. Somewhere in the distance, a forklift beeped. The world kept turning, indifferent to the moment happening in this small room. But for Malik and Amara, everything had changed. They were still standing at the edge of something vast and uncertain, but now they were standing there together, ready to jump. The kiss changed everything and nothing all at once. They still worked in the same warehouse. Amara was still his boss. The corporate policies that could cost them both their jobs were still very much in effect. But now there was this fragile, dangerous, beautiful thing between them that neither could ignore. They agreed to be careful, smart. No public displays at work, no favoritism, nothing that could raise suspicions or compromise Amara's position. It sounded reasonable in theory. In practice, it was torture. Malik found himself hyper-aware of every interaction. When Amara walked past his station, he had to resist the urge to reach for her hand. When she addressed the morning meetings, he forced himself not to stare at her mouth, remembering how it felt against his. When they passed in hallways, the effort of maintaining professional distance felt like holding his breath underwater. But there were stolen moments too. A brief touch when no one was looking. A text message that said more than the words on the screen. The way Amara's eyes would find his across the warehouse floor, conveying entire conversations in a single glance. It was excruciating. It was exhilarating. And Malik had never felt more alive. 3 weeks after that first kiss, they managed their first real date. Amara had arranged for her aunt to watch Zoe overnight, and Malik's mother had Devon for the evening. They drove 40 minutes outside the city to a small Italian restaurant where nobody would recognize them, where they could just be two people sharing a meal instead of boss and employee navigating a minefield. Malik had forgotten what this felt like. The nervous energy of a first date, the careful attention to conversation, the way candlelight softened already beautiful features into something that made his chest ache. Amara wore a deep blue dress that brought out the warmth in her skin, and when she smiled at something he said, Malik felt like he'd won the lottery. "Tell me something I don't know about you," Amara said, twirling pasta on her fork. "Something you've never told anyone at work." Malik thought for a moment. "I used to write poetry. In college, before everything got complicated. Nothing published or anything, just words on paper. A way to make sense of things." "Do you still write?" "No. I stopped after Janelle died. It felt wrong somehow, putting beauty into the world when everything hurt." Amara reached across the table and took his hand. "Maybe you could start again. When you're ready." "Maybe." He turned her hand over, tracing the lines of her palm with his thumb. "What about you? What don't I know?" "I wanted to be an architect," Amara admitted. "I had a full scholarship to study design, but then I got pregnant with Zoe, and her father left, and suddenly I needed money more than dreams. So I took a job at Green Logistics doing data entry and worked my way up." "Do you regret it?" She considered the question seriously. "Some days. But then I look at Zoe and I realize I wouldn't trade her for anything, not even the dreams I gave up." She squeezed his hand. "We do what we have to do for the people we love. You understand that better than anyone. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt sometimes." "No," Amara agreed softly. "It doesn't." They talked for hours, the restaurant slowly emptying around them until they were the last table left. The conversation flowed like they'd known each other for years instead of months, easy and deep and punctuated by laughter that felt like relief. When the waiter finally hinted that they were closing, Malik paid the check, and they walked outside into the cool spring night. "I don't want this evening to end," Amara said, leaning against her car. "Then let's not let it." Malik stepped closer, until he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. "Come here." He kissed her under the stars, slow and thorough and full of all the restraint they'd been exercising for weeks. Amara made a soft sound against his mouth and wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she looked up at him with something that might have been wonder. "I could get used to this," she whispered. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." They stood there in the parking lot, wrapped around each other, neither willing to break the spell. Eventually, reality reasserted itself. They both had early mornings, responsibilities, children to pick up. But driving home separately, Malik felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Real, tangible, terrifying hope that maybe life could be more than just survival. The following Monday brought reality crashing back with brutal efficiency. Malik was halfway through his shift when he heard raised voices from the break room. He found Marcus and two other workers, James and Terrell, in a heated discussion with one of the new supervisors, a man named Bryant, who'd transferred from another facility 2 weeks ago. "I'm telling you, the quotas are impossible," Marcus was saying, his face flushed with anger. You want us to move 30% more volume with the same staff and broken equipment? Someone's going to get hurt. Bryant crossed his arms, unimpressed. Other facilities manage just fine. Maybe you all need to work smarter instead of complaining. We're already working 12-hour shifts, James interjected. What do you want from us? Blood? I want results. That's what corporate wants. That's what you're getting paid for. Malik felt his jaw tighten. This was exactly what Amara had warned about. Corporate squeezing harder, pushing workers past their limits, setting everyone up for failure. Where's Ms. Reed? Terrell asked. She needs to know about this. Ms. Reed answers to me on floor operations, Bryant said smugly. And I'm telling you the quotas stand. Now get back to work before I write you up for insubordination. The workers dispersed, muttering angrily. Malik caught Marcus's arm as they left. We need to tell Amara about this. Bryant said she answers to him. I don't care what Bryant said. Amara runs this facility, and she needs to know he's pushing policies that could hurt people. Marcus studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're right, but be careful, man. Bryant's got connections to Peterson. Cross him, and you might be painting a target on your back. Then I guess I better watch my back. Malik found Amara in her office an hour later, reviewing shipping manifests with the kind of intense focus that meant she was stressed. She looked up when he knocked, and her expression immediately softened. Hey, what's wrong? He closed the door and told her everything. Bryant's impossible quotas, his dismissive attitude toward safety concerns, the way he'd invoked her name while undermining her authority. Amar's expression went from concerned to furious in the span of 30 seconds. He said what? That you answer to him on floor operations. Is that true? Absolutely not. He's a supervisor. I'm the operations manager. He answers to me. She was already pulling up organizational charts on her computer. This is Peterson's doing. He brought Bryant in to create chaos, to make me look like I've lost control of my own facility. So what do? We document everything, every unsafe quota, every violation of protocol, every instance of Bryant overstepping his authority. Amar's voice was cold steel. And then we bury him in so much evidence that even Peterson can't protect him. Malik felt a surge of admiration watching her work. This was Amara in her element, strategic, precise, absolutely fearless when it came to protecting her people. What do you need from me? He asked. Talk to the others. Find out exactly what Bryant's been demanding, when and from whom. I need names, dates, specific quotas. She met his eyes. And Malik, be discreet. If Bryant catches wind that we're building a case, he'll retaliate. Understood. He turned to leave, but Amara called him back. Malik? Yeah? Thank you for bringing this to me, for trusting me to handle it. Always, he said, echoing the text message from weeks ago. The words still carried the same weight. She smiled, quick and genuine, before returning to her computer. Malik left feeling like they were preparing for war. He just hoped they were ready for the battle ahead. Over the next 2 weeks, Malik became an unofficial investigator. He talked to workers during lunch breaks, gathered stories in quiet corners of the warehouse, documented every unreasonable demand Bryant had made. The picture that emerged was damning: systematic pressure to cut corners, ignore safety protocols, and push workers beyond sustainable limits. Marcus provided dates and times for when Bryant had explicitly told workers to skip safety checks to save time. James had text messages showing Bryant demanding overtime without proper compensation. Terrell had witnessed Bryant berating a single mother for leaving on time to pick up her kids, threatening her job if she couldn't commit to the team. It was textbook hostile work environment, and Malik delivered it all to Amara in a meticulously organized report. She read through it in silence, her expression darkening with each page. When she finished, she set the papers down with deliberate care. This is worse than I thought. What do we do? I take this to HR and to Peterson, since Bryant reports through him. Let them know exactly what's happening under their watch. Peterson won't do anything. He's the one who sent Bryant here in the first place. Maybe. But once this is on record, if anything happens, an injury, a complaint, anything, they can't claim ignorance. It's insurance. Amara looked at him seriously. This might blow back on us, you know. Bryant won't take this lying down. I know, but we can't just let him keep treating people like this. No, Amara agreed quietly. We can't. She submitted the report the next morning. By noon, Bryant had been called into a meeting with Peterson and HR. By evening, the entire warehouse was buzzing with speculation. Malik was loading a truck when Bryant found him. You think you're smart? Bryant's voice was low and dangerous. Going behind my back, feeding lies to management? I didn't lie about anything. I reported facts. You reported bullshit, and you're going to regret it. Is that a threat? Bryant stepped closer, invading Malik's space in a way that was clearly meant to intimidate. It's a promise. You and your girlfriend boss might think you're untouchable, but everyone has pressure points. Everyone. Something cold slithered down Malik's spine. Stay away from Ms. Reed. Or what? You'll protect her? Bryant laughed, sharp and mean. You're nobody, Carter. A warehouse worker with delusions of importance. The second you stop being useful, you're gone. And I'm going to make sure that day comes real soon. He walked away before Malik could respond, leaving behind a residue of menace that clung like oil. Malik immediately texted Amara. We need to talk. In private. Her response came quickly. My place. After work. I'll text you the address. Amara's house was a modest two-story in a quiet neighborhood. The kind of place where people mowed their lawns on Saturday mornings and knew their neighbors' names. It was nothing like the sterile apartment Malik had imagined. It felt lived in, loved, full of the particular chaos that came with raising a young child. Zoe's artwork covered the refrigerator. Toys were scattered across the living room floor. A half-finished puzzle sat on the coffee table. It looked like home. She's with my aunt tonight, Amara said, following his gaze. I thought we needed to talk without little ears around. Probably smart. She poured them both wine and they settled on the couch. Malik told her about Bryant's confrontation, not softening the implicit threat. Amara's expression went cold. He threatened you. He threatened both of us. He knows, Amara. About us. He suspects. That's different from knowing. But she looked worried. If he goes to HR with accusations, then we tell them the truth. That we're in a relationship, that we've been careful to keep it separate from work, and that we're willing to disclose it formally. Amara set down her wine glass. That could cost me my job. Maybe. Or maybe we get ahead of it. We control the narrative instead of letting Bryant weaponize it against us. And if they force me to choose between the job and you? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Malik took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I would never ask you to give up your career for me. You've worked too hard to get where you are. That's not what I asked. Amar's voice was quiet but firm. I asked what happens if they make me choose. Malik looked at her, really looked at her. At the woman who'd shown up at a hospital in the middle of the night because she couldn't bear for him to be alone, who'd held him while he fell apart and never once made him feel weak for it, who fought for her workers with the same fierce protectiveness she showed her daughter. Then you do what you need to do, he said finally, and I'll support whatever decision you make. That's not an answer, Malik. Yes, it is, because I care more about your happiness than I do about what's easy for me. He squeezed her hand. If keeping your job means we have to end this, I'll be devastated. But I'll understand. Amara's eyes glistened. What if I don't want to choose? What if I want both? Then we fight for both. But we're smart about it. We go to HR ourselves before Bryant can. We disclose the relationship and request guidance on how to manage it appropriately. We show them we're serious about maintaining professional boundaries. What if they say it's not allowed? Then we deal with that when it happens. But at least we tried. Amara was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing options and calculating risks. Finally, she nodded. Okay, we disclose. Together. First thing Monday morning. You're sure? No, but I'm sure about you, about us, and I'm tired of hiding something that makes me happy. Malik pulled her close, and she came willingly, tucking herself against his chest like she belonged there. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. We're going to be okay, he murmured. Promise? I promise to fight like hell, to make sure we are. She tilted her head up, and he kissed her, soft and slow, and full of all the promises they were both afraid to make out loud. When they finally broke apart, Amara rested her forehead against his. "Stay tonight," she whispered. "Just sleep. I don't want to be alone." "Neither do I." They moved to her bedroom, and it was innocent and intimate all at once. They lay facing each other in the darkness, hands clasped between them, talking in whispers about everything and nothing. About Devin and Zoe and the logistics of blended families, about fears and hopes, and the terrifying leap of faith it took to let someone in after you'd been hurt. Somewhere in the small hours of the morning, they fell asleep like that, connected, present, choosing each other despite all the very good reasons not to. When Malik woke to soft sunlight filtering through the curtains, Amara was still there, her face peaceful in sleep. And for the first time in years, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved this. Deserved happiness, deserved love, deserved more than just survival. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Malik and Amara met in the parking lot before anyone else arrived, drawing strength from each other before heading into what might be the most important conversation of their professional lives. The HR representative, a woman named Gloria Martinez, listened to their disclosure with an expression that gave nothing away. She took notes, asked clarifying questions, and maintained a professional neutrality that was both reassuring and terrifying. "So, to be clear," Gloria said, reviewing her notes, "you began a personal relationship approximately 4 weeks ago. You've maintained appropriate professional boundaries at work, and you're disclosing now to ensure compliance with company policy." "Yes, ma'am," Amara confirmed. "And you understand that this creates a reporting structure issue, given that Ms. Reed is Mr. Carter's direct supervisor?" "We do," Malik said. "We're prepared to work with whatever solution the company deems appropriate." Gloria nodded slowly. "I appreciate you coming forward. That shows integrity. However, I'll need to review this with the regional office and legal. It may take a few days to determine the appropriate course of action." "We understand," Amara said. "Thank you for hearing us out." They left the office in silence, both wound tight with anxiety. In the hallway, away from prying eyes, Amara caught Malik's hand and squeezed once, hard. "No going back now," she murmured. "No going back," he agreed. The next 72 hours were excruciating. They continued working as usual, maintaining their professional facade while waiting for the verdict that would determine their future. Bryant watched them with predatory satisfaction, clearly aware something had shifted. Marcus offered quiet support. The rest of the warehouse remained blissfully ignorant of the drama unfolding in the background. Wednesday afternoon, both Malik and Amara were called to Gloria's office. "I've reviewed your disclosure with regional management and legal," Gloria began. "The good news is that the company recognizes you've handled this appropriately by coming forward voluntarily. The challenging news is that the current reporting structure is untenable from a compliance standpoint." Malik's stomach dropped. "We have 2 options," Gloria continued. "Option 1, Ms. Reed remains as operations manager, and Mr. Carter transfers to a different facility under a different supervisor." "No," Amara said immediately. "That's not acceptable. Malik's built a life here. His son's school is nearby, his support system. Uprooting him isn't fair." Gloria nodded like she'd expected that response. "Option 2, we're currently expanding operations and need someone to lead our new night shift. It's a supervisory position, a promotion essentially. Mr. Carter would report directly to the facility manager instead of Miss Reed, eliminating the conflict of interest." Malik and Amara exchanged glances. "This would require some schedule adjustment," Gloria continued. "Night shift runs from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m., 4 days a week. The pay increase is significant, and it comes with benefits that might help with childcare costs." "Can I have some time to think about it?" Malik asked. "Of course. Take a few days, discuss it with your family. Just let me know by Monday." Walking out to the parking lot after work, Amara looked troubled. "A promotion is good, really good, but those hours are going to make seeing you nearly impossible," Malik finished. "We'd be on opposite shifts." "Yeah." They stood by her car, the sunset painting everything in shades of orange and gold. Malik could see the exhaustion in Amar's face, the worry lines that had deepened over the past few days. What do you want to do? She asked quietly. Honestly, I want to take the promotion. The money would help Devin and me tremendously. I could finally start saving again, maybe think about getting out of Parkview Gardens. He ran a hand over his face. But the idea of barely seeing you, we'll make it work, Amara said firmly. We'll have weekends. We'll have phone calls. We'll figure it out. She took his hands. Malik, you've been stuck in the same position for 6 years because life kept throwing obstacles at you. This is your chance to move forward. Don't pass it up because of me. This isn't just because of you. This is because I finally found something worth more than a paycheck. And I don't want to lose it chasing a promotion. You won't lose me. Different shifts don't change how I feel about you. Promise? I promise. He kissed her there in the parking lot, not caring who might see. It was quick and desperate, full of all the uncertainty and hope tangled up in his chest. I'll talk to my mom, he said when they broke apart. Figure out if she can help with the new schedule. If we can make the logistics work, I'll take it. Amar smiled, relieved. Good. You deserve this, Malik. You deserve every opportunity coming your way. Well, later that night, over dinner with his mother and Devin, Malik explained the situation. His mother listened carefully, asked practical questions, and finally nodded. The hours will be hard on Devin, she said honestly, but I can help more. I'm retired. I've got the time. And Lord knows that boy needs his father to have opportunities. You sure, Mom? I don't want to burden you. Child, please, taking care of my grandson is never a burden. You take that promotion. We'll figure out the rest. Devin, who'd been quietly eating his chicken nuggets, looked up. Does this mean I can have sleepovers with Grandma more? Malik's mother laughed. Sure does, baby. Then I think Daddy should take the new job. It was settled with the simple logic of a 6-year-old. Malik called Amara that night to tell her. I'm taking it. I talked to my mom, and we can make the childcare work. Malik, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. Couldn't have done it without you pushing me. That's not true. You earned this all on your own. Maybe. But having you believe in me made it easier to believe in myself. There was a soft silence on the line, filled with everything they couldn't say over the phone. The love building between them, the fear of what different shifts would mean, the hope that they were strong enough to weather it. When do you start? Amara asked finally. 2 weeks. They want to give me time to train and transition. Then we have 2 weeks of the same schedule. We should make the most of it. What did you have in mind? Dinner, with the kids, all 4 of us. It's time they got used to seeing us together. Malik's heart swelled. You mean that? I mean everything when it comes to you and us and building something real. Then yes, dinner with the kids sounds perfect. That Saturday, they took Devin and Zoe to a family-friendly restaurant with coloring menus and a play area. Watching the kids interact, Zoe showing Devin how to draw elaborate princesses, Devin teaching Zoe about dinosaurs, Malik felt something slot into place in his chest. This could be his life. Not just survival, not just getting through the day, but actual family, actual joy, actual moments worth remembering. Across the table, Amara caught his eye and smiled. In that smile, Malik saw his own hope reflected back at him, fragile but growing stronger every day. They were building something real and worth fighting for. And for the first time in 3 years, Malik let himself believe they might actually make it work. The transition to night shift was harder than Malik had anticipated. Not the work itself. He'd always been good at adapting, at pushing through discomfort to get the job done. But the schedule inversion wreaked havoc on everything else. He'd leave for work just as Devin was finishing dinner, kiss his son goodbye under the kitchen light, and return home at dawn when the boy was still sleeping. Weekends became their lifeline, precious hours when Malik could actually be a father instead of a ghost who left notes on the refrigerator. The promotion came with real benefits, though. The pay increase was significant enough that Malik opened a savings account for the first time in years. He bought Devin new shoes without having to calculate whether they could afford groceries that week. He even started looking at apartments in better neighborhoods, places with functional heating and windows that actually locked. But the thing he missed most, the thing that made the overnight hours feel impossibly long, was Amara. They texted constantly. Good morning messages when her day was starting and his was ending. Photos of coffee cups and sunrise views, late night calls when she couldn't sleep and he was on his lunch break, their voices the only bridge across the hours that separated them. It wasn't enough, but it was what they had. 3 weeks into the new schedule, Malik was doing inventory checks in the quiet warehouse when his phone buzzed. A text from Amara, sent at nearly midnight. Can't sleep, missing you. He smiled and called her immediately. She answered on the first ring. Hey. Her voice was soft, intimate in the darkness. Shouldn't you be working? I'm on break, and I'd rather talk to you. He settled onto a stack of pallets, phone pressed to his ear. What's keeping you up? Just thinking. About us? About how we're making this work even though it's hard. Are we making it work? Or are we just surviving it? Amara was quiet for a moment. Both, maybe, but surviving together is better than thriving apart. Is it though? The question slipped out before Malik could stop it. I barely see you anymore. We get maybe 6 waking hours together a week. That's not a relationship, Amara. That's just two people who care about each other but can't actually be together. So what are you saying? I don't know what I'm saying. I'm tired and frustrated, and I miss you so much it physically hurts. He rubbed his eyes, exhaustion making him raw. I took this promotion because it was the right move for Devin and me, and I don't regret that. But I didn't expect it to feel like choosing between my future and us. It's not a choice, Malik. We're figuring it out. Are we? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like we're just postponing the inevitable conversation about whether this can actually work long term. The silence on the line stretched uncomfortably. Malik could hear Amara breathing, could practically feel her processing his words from across the city. Do you want to end this? She asked finally, her voice small in a way he'd never heard before. No, hell no, I'm not saying that at all. He stood up, pacing between the shelves. I'm saying I don't know how to keep doing this without it breaking both of us. The distance, the schedules, seeing each other in passing like we're strangers who happen to work at the same place. So what do you want? I want Sunday mornings. I want to wake up next to you and make coffee and watch our kids play together. I want normal couple things, dinner dates and movie nights and boring conversations about whose turn it is to do laundry. His voice cracked. I want more than stolen moments and text messages and pretending I'm okay with the scraps of time we managed to find. Malik, I love you. The words tumbled out urgent and unplanned. I'm in love with you, Amara. And I know we haven't said it yet. I know it's fast and maybe it's crazy, but it's true. And loving you from a distance is killing me. He heard her sharp intake of breath, the catch in her throat that might have been a sob. I love you too, she whispered. I've loved you since that night in the hospital when you let yourself fall apart in my arms. Maybe even before that. Maybe since the night of the storm when you looked at me like I was more than just your boss. Then help me figure out how we make this work. Really work. Not just survive, but actually build something sustainable. I don't know how. The shifts aren't going to change. Your promotion is important. My job demands are only getting worse with the expansion. She paused. Maybe we need to accept that this is what our relationship looks like right now, and maybe that has to be enough. What if it's not enough for me? The question hung between them like a blade. Then I don't know what to tell you, Amar said, and Malik could hear tears in her voice now. Because I can't quit my job. I have Zoe to think about, a mortgage, responsibilities. And you can't give up this promotion after you've worked so hard for it. So unless one of us is willing to sacrifice everything we've built, I don't see another option. Malik closed his eyes. She was right, and he hated it. They were trapped between competing needs with no clear solution. Love wasn't enough when reality demanded sacrifices neither could afford to make. I should get back to work, he said quietly. Malik, please don't. I'm not ending this. I need some time to think, to figure out what I'm actually asking for. Okay, her voice was barely audible. I love you. That hasn't changed. I love you too. It's the one thing I'm sure of. He ended the call and sat in the silent warehouse, surrounded by boxes and pallets and the systematic organization of inventory. Everything in its place, everything accounted for. His professional life had never been more secure. His personal life had never felt more uncertain. The rest of his shift passed in a blur of mechanical tasks and spiraling thoughts. By the time he clocked out at 4 a.m., Malik had made a decision. He needed to talk to someone who understood the impossible math of sacrifice and love, someone who'd navigated the terrain of single parenthood and second chances. He needed his mother. She was already awake when he arrived, sitting at her kitchen table with a cup of tea and the morning paper. She took one look at his face and pointed to the chair across from her. "Sit. I'll make you breakfast." "Mom, you don't have to—" "Well, sit, Malik." He sat. Within minutes, she'd put a plate of eggs and toast in front of him and settled back into her chair with that patient expression that said she'd wait all day if necessary for him to start talking. "I'm in love with Amara," he said finally, "and I don't know how to make it work with our schedules and our responsibilities and all the practical reasons why this should be impossible." His mother sipped her tea. "Love's supposed to be impossible. That's what makes it worth fighting for. I am fighting. We both are. But it feels like fighting against the tide. Like no matter how hard we try, the current keeps pulling us apart." "Then maybe you're fighting the wrong battle." Malik looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "You're fighting the distance, fighting the schedules, fighting all these external things you can't control." She reached across the table and took his hand. "But have you asked yourself what you're fighting for? What the end game looks like?" "I want to be with her. Build a life together." "Okay, what does that life look like specifically?" Malik opened his mouth, then closed it. He hadn't thought that far ahead. He'd been so focused on navigating the immediate obstacles that he hadn't actually envisioned the destination. "I want us to live together eventually," he said slowly, working it out as he spoke. "I want Devin and Zoe to grow up as siblings. I want to wake up next to her and fall asleep next to her and handle all the mundane parts of life as a team instead of separately." "That's a marriage you're describing, baby." The word hit him like a revelation. "Yeah, I guess it is." "So the question isn't how do you make the current situation work? The question is how do you get from here to there?" His mother squeezed his hand. "You're thinking too small, Malik. You're trying to solve the problem of the next week, the next month. But if you love this woman the way you say you do, you need to start thinking in years, in forever." "That's terrifying." "Of course it is. But you've already lost one person you loved. You know how fragile life is. You know that waiting for the perfect moment means you might miss your chance entirely." She fixed him with the look that had made him confess to breaking windows and skipping school as a kid. "So let me ask you this. Do you want to marry Amara Reed?" Malik felt the truth of it settle into his bones. "Yes, I do." "Then stop dancing around it and tell her that. Stop fighting about schedules and start planning a future. Because once you both know where you're headed, all these obstacles become things to navigate together instead of things that pull you apart." It was so simple, so obvious. And Malik had been too caught up in immediate problems to see it. "When did you get so wise?" he asked with a shaky smile. "I've always been this wise. You just finally started listening." He stood and hugged her, feeling some of the weight lift from his shoulders. He didn't have all the answers yet, but he had clarity about what he wanted. And that was a start. Chapter. Malik caught 3 hours of sleep, then woke with purpose. He showered, dressed, and drove to the one place that felt right for what he was about to do. The jewelry store was small and family-owned, tucked between a coffee shop and a dry cleaner. The owner, an older man with kind eyes and steady hands, listened as Malik explained what he was looking for. Something simple but meaningful, nothing flashy. She's practical, hardworking. She'd hate anything ostentatious. "What's your budget?" Malik named a number that represented 2 months of careful saving from his new salary. The owner nodded and pulled out several options. They were all beautiful, but none of them felt right. Too delicate, too traditional, too impersonal. Then the owner pulled out a ring Malik hadn't noticed before. A simple platinum band with a single stone. Not a diamond, but a deep blue sapphire that caught the light like captured sky. It was elegant without being pretentious. Strong without being harsh. Perfect. "That one," Malik said immediately. "Good choice. Sapphires represent wisdom and loyalty. They're also more durable than diamonds, better for someone who works with their hands." Malik smiled. Amara definitely worked with her hands. She was always moving, always fixing things, always in motion. The ring needed to keep up with her. He bought it on the spot, feeling the weight of the small box in his pocket like a promise he was finally ready to make. The hard part would be figuring out when and how to ask. They barely saw each other. A proposal required time, privacy, the right moment. But Malik was tired of waiting for perfect conditions. Life didn't work that way. You made the moment right by showing up with your whole heart. He texted Amar that afternoon when he knew she'd be on her lunch break. Can we talk tonight? In person? Her response came quickly, tinged with worry. Is everything okay? Everything's better than okay. I just need to see you, my place. 7 p.m., I'll be there. The hours until 7 p.m. crawled by with agonizing slowness. Malik picked up Devin from school, helped with homework, made dinner, and tried not to betray the nervous energy crackling through his veins. His mother must have sensed something because she insisted on taking Devin for the evening without Malik even asking. Go do what you need to do, she said with a knowing smile. We'll be just fine. At 6:55 p.m., Malik stood on Amara's front porch, the ring box burning a hole in his jacket pocket. He knocked and she answered immediately, worry etched across her features. What's wrong? You sounded so serious in your text, and after last night I thought... He kissed her, cutting off the spiral of anxiety. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. I just needed to see you. You're scaring me, Malik. Don't be scared. Come sit with me. He led her to the living room, to the same couch where they'd confessed their feelings months ago. Amara sat beside him, hands clasped tightly in her lap, clearly bracing for bad news. Last night on the phone, I said some things that probably sounded like I was giving up, Malik began. Like I was ready to throw in the towel because things were hard. I know, and I've been thinking all day about how to fix it, how to make more time, but I keep coming up empty and... Amara, stop. He took her hands gently. I'm not here to break up with you. I'm here because my mom asked me a question this morning that changed my perspective on everything. What question? She asked me what I was fighting for, what the end game looked like. He met her eyes steadily. And I realized I've been so focused on the immediate obstacles that I lost sight of where I actually want this to go. Where do you want it to go? Malik took a deep breath. I want forever. I want you and me and Devin and Zoe as a family. I want to stop measuring our relationship in stolen hours and start building an actual life together. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. I want to argue about whose turn it is to do dishes and make coffee on Sunday mornings and help our kids with their homework at the same kitchen table. Amara's eyes were wide, her breath coming faster. I want to marry you, Malik continued, pulling the ring box from his pocket. Not someday when everything's perfect, not when the schedules align or when we've figured out all the logistics. I want to marry you now because I know with absolute certainty that you're the person I want to navigate life with. The good parts and the hard parts and everything in between. He opened the box and Amara's hand flew to her mouth. This isn't how I planned to do this, he admitted with a shaky laugh. I had this whole speech prepared about how you showed me what it means to fight for something instead of just surviving, about how you made me believe I deserved happiness again. But the truth is simpler than all that. He took the ring from the box. I love you, Amara read, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that love to you every single day. Will you marry me? Tears were streaming down Amara's face. You're serious. Never been more serious about anything in my life. We barely see each other. We're still figuring out how to make this work. I know, but we'll figure it out as a team, as partners. He held the ring steady despite his trembling hand. I'm not asking you to have all the answers. I'm asking you to take a leap of faith with me. For one terrifying moment, Amara just stared at him. Then she laughed, a watery, joyful sound, and threw her arms around his neck. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. I'll marry you, you impossible, wonderful man. Malik slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. It fit perfectly, the sapphire catching the lamplight like a piece of captured sky. Amara held her hand up, tears still falling, and laughed again. It's beautiful. It's perfect. You're perfect. She kissed him then, deep and thorough and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both grinning like idiots, Amara rested her hand over his heart. We're really doing this, she whispered. We really are. I don't have all the answers about how we make it work. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out together. That's what marriage is, right? Choosing each other every day and figuring out the logistics as we go. Amara smiled through her tears. When did you get so wise? About 3 hours ago when my mother knocked some sense into me. That made her laugh. I love your mother, and I love you so much. I love you too. More than I thought I was capable of loving anyone again. They sat there on her couch, wrapped around each other, the ring on Amara's finger a tangible promise of the future they were choosing to build. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic and distant sirens and all the noise of life continuing. But inside this room, in this moment, everything was still and perfect and exactly where it needed to be. They told the kids the next weekend over ice cream at Devin's favorite place. Malik had wanted to prepare an elaborate explanation, but Amara suggested they keep it simple and let the kids lead the conversation. So Devin, Zoe, we have something exciting to tell you, Amara began, her hand finding Malik's under the table. Malik and I are getting married, which means we're going to be a family, all 4 of us together. Devin's eyes went wide. Like a real family, with all of us living in the same house? Eventually, yes. We'll need some time to figure out the details, but that's the plan. Will Zoe be my sister? Zoe looked up from her chocolate chip cone. Will Devin be my brother? If you both want that, then yes, Malik said gently. What do you think about that? Devin turned to Zoe with the utmost seriousness. Do you want to be my sister? Zoe considered this with equal gravity. Will we have to share toys? Some of them, probably. Can we build forts together? The biggest forts ever. Then, yes, I want to be your sister. Devin grinned and looked at his father. Then I think you should definitely marry Ms. Amara. Amara laughed, relief evident in her voice. Well, I'm glad we have your permission. Can I be in the wedding? Zoe asked. My friend Emma was a flower girl at her aunt's wedding, and she got to wear a princess dress. You can absolutely be in the wedding, Malik assured her. Can I too? Devin asked. Of course. We wouldn't get married without both of you there. The conversation dissolved into excited planning about dresses and suits and whether there would be cake. Malik and Amara exchanged glances over the chaos, both trying not to laugh at how effortlessly the kids had accepted what they'd been so anxious about. Later, walking back to the cars with sticky fingers and happy children, Amara leaned into Malik's side. That went better than I expected, she murmured. Kids are resilient. They adapt faster than we give them credit for. Speaking of adapting, we should probably start talking about logistics. Where we're going to live, how we're going to manage the schedules, when we actually want to get married. Soon, Malik said immediately. I don't want a long engagement. I want to start our life together as soon as possible. Define soon. 3 months? 6 at the most? Amara stopped walking, turning to face him. You're serious? Completely. We've already wasted enough time dancing around this. I don't want to wait anymore. She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded decisively. Okay, 6 months, small ceremony, just family and close friends, nothing elaborate. Perfect. They sealed it with a kiss while the kids groaned theatrically and demanded they stop being gross. Malik had never felt less gross in his life. He felt alive, hopeful, and for the first time since Janelle died, he felt like he was moving toward something instead of just surviving the present. The announcement at work was handled with professional efficiency. They informed Gloria in HR first, who seemed genuinely pleased for them. The news spread through the warehouse with the speed of wildfire. Marcus gave Malik a bear hug that nearly cracked his ribs. The other workers offered congratulations with varying degrees of enthusiasm and surprise. Bryant's reaction was predictably bitter. Sleeping your way to the top finally paid off, huh, Carter? Malik didn't take the bait. We disclosed our relationship months ago and worked within company guidelines. but I appreciate your concern for professional ethics. The sarcasm wasn't lost on anyone within earshot. Bryant's jaw worked silently before he stalked off, leaving behind a wake of uncomfortable tension. He's going to be a problem, Marcus observed. Let him. We've done everything by the book. He's got nothing. But Marcus's warning proved prescient. Over the next few weeks, Bryant seemed to be documenting every interaction Malik had with Amara, every decision that could be construed as favoritism, every moment that might suggest their relationship was affecting their work. It was exhausting being under that kind of scrutiny, having to second-guess every professional interaction. Amara handled it with her characteristic grace, but Malik could see the strain building. They were being careful to the point of paranoia, and it was taking a toll. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night when Malik's team was short-staffed and falling behind on shipments. Amara came down to the floor to assess the situation, something she did regularly as operations manager. But when she suggested they pull workers from another section to help, Bryant was there immediately. Interesting that you're prioritizing the night shift, Ms. Reed. Wouldn't have anything to do with your fiancé running it, would it? It has to do with meeting our contractual obligations for morning deliveries, Amar replied coolly. But thank you for your input, Bryant. I'm just saying, appearance matters, and it appears like you're playing favorites. Then I suggest you submit your concerns through official channels instead of making accusations on the warehouse floor. Bryant's face flushed. You can't talk to me like that. I can and I will when you're questioning my professional judgment in front of my staff. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. She walked away, leaving Bryant fuming. Malik wanted to intervene, to defend her, but knew that would only make things worse. So he focused on his job, got his team back on track, and tried to ignore the knot of anxiety in his gut. At 3 a.m., during his break, he called Amara. Hey, she answered, voice thick with interrupted sleep. Everything okay? I'm sorry about earlier with Bryant. That wasn't your fault. It was because of me, though. He's trying to use our relationship to undermine you. Let him try. I've got documentation for every decision I make. He's got nothing but speculation and bitterness. Still, I hate that you have to deal with this. It comes with the territory. And honestly, Malik, he's the least of my concerns right now. She paused. I got an email from corporate today. They want to meet with me next week about the facility expansion. That's good, right? You've been pushing for that expansion for months. Maybe. Or maybe it's about restructuring. Peterson's been making noise about streamlining operations across multiple facilities. For all I know, they're planning to eliminate my position entirely. Malik felt cold dread settle in his stomach. They can't do that. You've made this place the most efficient facility in the region. Efficiency doesn't always matter when they're looking at bottom lines and consolidation opportunities. Her voice was tired, defeated in a way he rarely heard. I'm trying not to catastrophize, but I have to be realistic about the possibilities. When's the meeting? Thursday, 2 p.m. I wish I could be there with you. Me too, but we'll get through it. We always do. They talked for a few more minutes before Amara needed to get back to sleep. But Malik spent the rest of his shift consumed with worry. Everything was finally falling into place. The engagement, the blended family, the future they were building together. The idea that corporate might upend it all felt cosmically unfair. Thursday arrived with agonizing slowness. Malik tried to sleep during the day, but mostly just stared at his ceiling and checked his phone obsessively for updates. At 2:05 p.m., he sent Amara a text. Thinking of you, you've got this. The response didn't come until almost 4 p.m. Can you come over tonight? Need to talk. His stomach dropped. Of course. What time? Whenever you can. I'll be home by 6. Malik arranged for his mother to watch Devon and drove to Amara's house with mounting dread. She answered the door in business clothes, her face carefully neutral. But he could see the tension in her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes. What happened? He asked as soon as the door closed. Amara led him to the couch and sat down heavily. They're offering me a regional position, overseeing 6 facilities instead of just 1. Significant pay increase, better benefits, more responsibility. Malik's eyebrows shot up. That's incredible. Amara, wait, why don't you look happy about this? Because the position is based 3 hours away. I'd have to relocate. The words hit him like a physical blow. What? They want me to move to the regional office. manage facilities remotely with weekly site visits. It's a huge opportunity, Malik, the kind of promotion people spend entire careers working toward. But it means leaving, moving away. Yeah, her voice cracked. It does. They sat in silence, the weight of the decision pressing down on both of them. Malik's mind raced through possibilities, trying to find a solution that didn't require impossible sacrifices. What did you tell them? He asked finally. That I needed time to think about it, to discuss it with my family. She took his hand. With you. What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to take it. This is everything I've worked for. Proof that all the sacrifices meant something. She wiped her eyes roughly. But the other part of me can't imagine leaving you and Devin, starting over in a new city, right when we're finally building something real. Could we come with you, Devin and me? Could you? You just got promoted. Devin settled in school. Your mother's here. And even if you could relocate, what about your custody arrangement? Would your in-laws make that difficult? Malik hadn't even thought about that. Janelle's parents had visitation rights. Moving 3 hours away would complicate that enormously, potentially require court approval. The logistics were staggering. So what are our options? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I don't know. Amar's tears fell freely now. I could turn it down, stay here, keep my current position. But you'd resent me eventually. You'd always wonder what if. Or I could take it. We could try long distance for real this time, see each other on weekends. We can barely make different shifts work. 3 hours away would be impossible. I know. She buried her face in her hands. I know, and I hate it. I hate that we finally have everything we want and the universe is testing us like this. Malik pulled her close, and she collapsed against his chest, sobbing. He held her while his own eyes burned, while his mind scrambled for solutions that didn't exist, while the future they'd planned together crumbled like sand through their fingers. We'll figure it out, he whispered, knowing it was hollow comfort. We have to. But for the first time since he'd slipped that sapphire ring onto her finger, Malik wondered if love really was enough. If wanting something badly enough could make it work when reality kept throwing impossible choices in their path. And he was terrified of what the answer might be. They stayed up most of the night talking through scenarios, each one dissolving under the weight of practical impossibilities. By the time dawn broke through Amar's living room windows, they were no closer to an answer, just exhausted and raw from circling the same problems without resolution. Malik went home as the city woke up, his mind numb and his heart heavy. Devin was still asleep when he arrived, and his mother took one look at his face before pulling him into a hug. Whatever it is, you'll get through it, she said firmly. He told her everything about the promotion, the relocation, the impossible choice between Amar's career and their relationship. His mother listened without interrupting, her expression growing more thoughtful with each detail. So she has to decide by when? She asked finally. End of next week. They want her to start the new position in 6 weeks if she accepts. And you're both assuming that one of you has to sacrifice everything. What else is there? She can't commute 3 hours each way. I can't uproot Devin and move away from you and deal with custody complications. We're stuck. His mother gave him that look, the one that said he was being deliberately obtuse. Have you actually talked to Janelle's parents about this? Or are you just assuming they'd fight you? Malik opened his mouth, then closed it. He hadn't talked to them. He'd been avoiding them since the engagement, uncertain how to explain that he was moving on, building a new life. The guilt of that avoidance sat heavy in his chest. I don't even know where to start that conversation, he admitted. Start with honesty. They love their daughter, and they love Devin, but they also know you've been struggling alone for 3 years. Give them a chance to be supportive before you assume the worst. She was right. He knew she was right. But the thought of calling Robert and Patricia, of explaining that he wanted to move their grandson 3 hours away so he could marry someone they'd never met, felt insurmountable. Still, he made the call that afternoon. Patricia answered on the 3rd ring. Malik, is everything all right? Is Devin okay? Devin's fine. Everyone's fine. I need to talk to you and Robert about something important. Can I come by tomorrow? There was a pause. Of course, come for lunch. 1 o'clock? I'll be there. And Patricia, thank you. Family doesn't need thanks, Malik. We'll see you tomorrow. He hung up feeling marginally more hopeful but still terrified. One problem at a time, he told himself. Figure out the custody situation first, then tackle everything else. Robert and Patricia's house looked exactly as it had when Janelle was alive. The same cream-colored siding, the same flower boxes on the windows, the same worn welcome mat. Being here without her still felt wrong, like walking into a memory that didn't quite fit anymore. Patricia answered the door with a warm hug. She looked older than Malik remembered, more gray in her hair, deeper lines around her eyes. Grief had aged them both. "Come in, sweetheart." Robert's in the kitchen finishing up lunch. They settled around the dining table with sandwiches and sweet tea, and Malik forced himself to eat despite his churning stomach. Finally, Robert set down his glass and fixed Malik with a direct look. "So what's this about, son?" Malik took a deep breath. "I'm getting married." The words hung in the air. Patricia's hand flew to her chest, and Robert's eyebrows rose sharply. "Married," Patricia repeated. "Malik, that's wonderful. Who is she?" "Her name is Amara Reed. She's the operations manager at Green Logistics. We've been together for several months, and she has a 5-year-old daughter named Zoe." He pulled out his phone and showed them pictures. Amara smiling at the camera, the kids playing together, the 4 of them at the ice cream shop. "She's incredible with Devin, and she makes me happy in a way I didn't think was possible again." Patricia's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the photos. "She's beautiful, Malik, and Devin looks so happy." "He is. We both are." Malik swallowed hard. "But there's a complication. Amara's been offered a major promotion that requires relocating 3 hours away. It's a huge opportunity for her career, and I want to support that, which means I need to talk to you about potentially moving Devin." The atmosphere shifted immediately. Robert's expression hardened, and Patricia set down the phone with trembling hands. "You want to take our grandson away," Robert said flatly. "I want to build a life with someone I love. Someone who loves Devin like he's her own, but I won't do it without your blessing." Malik leaned forward, urgent. "You have every right to be part of Devin's life. We could arrange regular visits, holidays, summers even. I would never cut you out. You're his grandparents, your family." 3 hours away isn't regular visits," Patricia said, her voice breaking. "It's occasional. It's special occasions and phone calls. We've already lost Janelle. We can't lose Devin too." "You won't lose him. I promise you that." "How can you promise that when you're moving him away from everyone who knows him, everyone who loves him?" Robert stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "He's settled here. He has school, friends, stability. You'd uproot all of that for a woman you've known less than a year?" "I'd uproot it for a chance at the kind of family Devin deserves. A mother figure who adores him. A sister. A home with 2 parents who support each other." Malik stood too, his voice steady despite the emotion churning in his chest. "I love Janelle with everything I had. You know that. But she's gone, and I've spent 3 years just surviving. Amara gave me permission to live again, to hope for something more than just getting through each day." Patricia was crying openly now. "We're not trying to keep you trapped in grief, Malik. We want you to be happy. We want Devin to have a full life." "Then help me give him that. Come meet Amara. See how she is with him. And if you still think this is a mistake, we'll figure something else out. But please, give her a chance." Robert and Patricia exchanged a long look, communicating in the wordless way of couples who'd been together for decades. Finally, Patricia nodded. "Bring her to dinner," she said quietly. "This weekend. Let us meet the woman who's made you smile again." Relief flooded through Malik so intensely his knees went weak. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank us yet," Robert said gruffly. "We're still reserving judgment, but Patricia's right. We need to meet her before we make any decisions about custody modifications." It wasn't complete acceptance, but it was a door opening instead of slamming shut, and right now Malik would take it. He called Amara from the car, hands still shaking from the conversation. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. "Better than I expected. They want to meet you. Dinner this weekend." "Malik, that's wonderful. I'm so relieved. Don't be relieved yet. They're still deciding whether they'll support the move, but at least they're willing to consider it. It's more than we had this morning. He could hear the cautious hope in her voice. So what changed your mind about talking to them? My mother pointed out that I was making assumptions instead of having actual conversations. Turns out she was right. Amara laughed softly. Your mother is usually right. It's kind of terrifying. Tell me about it. Malik pulled into traffic, feeling lighter than he had in days. So Saturday night, dinner with my former in-laws. Think you can handle that? I've handled corporate executives and hostile inspectors. I can handle dinner. These are Janelle's parents, Amara. They're going to compare you to her whether they mean to or not. I know. And I'm not trying to replace her or compete with her memory. I'm just trying to be myself and hope that's enough. It will be. You're incredible and they're going to see that. There was a pause on the line. Malik, I haven't accepted the position yet. I wanted you to know that. I told them I needed more time to work through some personal logistics. How much time did they give you? Another week, but if we can't make this work, if your in-laws won't agree to the custody modification, if the logistics are too complicated, I'm not taking it. I'd rather stay here with you than chase a promotion that costs us our relationship. Don't say that. This opportunity is too important. You're more important. The words settled over Malik like a blanket. We're going to make this work. I don't know how yet, but we will. Together. Together, Amara echoed. I like the sound of that. Saturday arrived with the weight of a final exam. Amara picked out her outfit with surgical precision, changing 3 times before settling on a simple navy dress that was professional without being formal. Zoe wore her favorite purple jumper, and both of them looked nervous when Malik and Devin picked them up. The drive to Robert and Patricia's felt eternal. Malik kept up a steady stream of reassuring conversation, but his own anxiety was barely contained. Everything hinged on this dinner. If it went well, they had a path forward. If it didn't, he forced himself not to think about that possibility. Patricia answered the door with a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She hugged Malik, then turned to Amara with visible assessment. You must be Amara. I'm Patricia, and this is my husband, Robert. It's so nice to meet you both. Amara shook their hands with professional confidence. And this is my daughter, Zoe. Zoe, who'd been coached extensively on manners, offered a small wave. Hello. Patricia's expression softened immediately. Well, hello there, sweetheart. Devin's in the living room. Would you like to go play with him? The kids disappeared together, leaving the adults in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Robert gestured toward the dining room. Shall we eat? Dinner started stiffly with polite small talk about the weather and traffic. But gradually, as Amara answered questions about her work and her life with genuine warmth, the atmosphere began to thaw. She talked about raising Zoe alone, about the challenges of balancing career and motherhood, about the guilt of never feeling like she was doing enough in either role. Patricia nodded along, recognition flickering in her eyes. Janelle used to say the same thing, the mom guilt. She was convinced she was failing at everything even though she was doing brilliantly. It's the hardest job in the world, Amara agreed softly, and nobody prepares you for how much of yourself you have to give. How did you and Malik meet? Robert asked, his tone less hostile than before. Amara glanced at Malik, and he nodded encouragement. She told the story honestly. The storm, the power outage, the professional relationship that slowly became something more. She talked about how Malik showed up at the hospital when Devin was sick, how he'd supported her through corporate pressure, how he'd taught her that accepting help wasn't weakness. He's the strongest man I've ever met, she finished quietly. Not because he never breaks, but because he keeps showing up even when things are hard. Devin is lucky to have him as a father, and I'm lucky to have him as a partner. Patricia wiped her eyes discreetly. Robert cleared his throat and looked at Malik. You really love her. More than I thought I could love anyone again. And you really think this move is what's best for Devin? Malik chose his words carefully. I think Devin deserves to grow up in a home with 2 parents who love each other and model what healthy partnership looks like. I think he deserves a sister to grow up with, and a mother figure who adores him. And I think sometimes the best thing we can give our kids is permission to move forward instead of staying stuck in the past. The silence that followed was loaded with meaning. Then Patricia reached across the table and took Amara's hand. "Janelle would have liked you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "She would have appreciated how fiercely you love. And she would have wanted Malik and Devin to be happy." Amara squeezed her hand, tears spilling over. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Robert stood and walked to the window, his back to the table. When he finally turned around, his eyes were wet, but his expression was resolute. "We'll agree to the custody modification, with conditions." Malik's heart leaped. "Anything." "Devin spends at least 1 weekend a month with us, all of spring break and 2 weeks in the summer. Major holidays alternate. And you bring him back here for important events, birthdays, graduations, that sort of thing." "Done. Absolutely. Whatever you want. And you stay in touch. Real contact, not just obligatory phone calls. We want to know what's happening in his life." "You have my word." Patricia stood and walked to Malik, pulling him into a tight hug. "We're not losing you. We're gaining a daughter-in-law and a granddaughter. That's what Janelle would want us to see." Malik held her, this woman who'd loved his wife and now was choosing to love him through his new life. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for understanding." When they finally pulled apart, everyone was crying. Robert shook Amara's hand, then pulled her into an awkward hug. The kids came running in to see what the commotion was about, and suddenly everyone was laughing through their tears. They stayed for coffee and dessert, and the conversation flowed easily now that the hard part was done. Patricia insisted on hearing every detail about the wedding plans. Robert asked about Amara's new position with genuine interest. The kids showed off their fort-building skills and demanded everyone come see. By the time they left, it was dark outside, and Malik felt like a massive weight had lifted from his chest. In the car, Amara reached for his hand and squeezed. "We did it," she said, wonder in her voice. "We did it. So I guess I should call Corporate Monday and accept that position. I guess I should start looking at apartments in the new city. And schools for the kids. And moving companies." They looked at each other and started laughing. The slightly hysterical laughter of people who'd been holding their breath for so long they'd forgotten what normal breathing felt like. "We're really doing this," Amar said. "We really are." In the back seat, Devin and Zoe had fallen asleep, Devin's head on Zoe's shoulder. Malik glanced at them in the rearview mirror and felt his chest tighten with love and hope and the terrifying responsibility of building something new from the ashes of what he'd lost. But he wasn't building it alone anymore, and that made all the difference. The next 6 weeks passed in a controlled chaos of packing and planning and endless logistics. Amara accepted the regional position with a start date that gave them just enough time to relocate. Malik gave notice at the warehouse, earning handshakes and well wishes from everyone except Bryant, who looked vindictively pleased to see him go. The hardest goodbye was Marcus, who pulled Malik into a bear hug in the parking lot on his last day. "You better stay in touch, man, and invite me to that wedding." "Front row seats," Malik promised. "You and your whole family." They found an apartment in the new city, nothing fancy but bigger than what they'd had before, with a yard where the kids could play and good schools nearby. Malik found work at a distribution center that paid slightly less than his supervisor role, but offered day shifts that matched Amara's schedule. The pay cut was worth it to finally have evenings together as a family. His mother decided to move with them, finding a senior apartment in the same complex. "You think I'm letting my grandson grow up 3 hours away without me? Not a chance." Devin and Zoe adapted with the resilience of children, excited about their new rooms and the prospect of sharing a home. They argued about bathroom time and toy ownership, but they also looked out for each other in ways that made Malik's heart ache with gratitude. 2 months after the move, on a perfect Saturday in early fall, Malik and Amara got married in a small ceremony at a local park. Devin stood beside his father as best man, serious and proud in his little suit. Zoe scattered flower petals with intense concentration, determined to do her job perfectly. Robert and Patricia sat in the front row beside Malik's mother, all three of them crying before the ceremony even started. Marcus made the drive with his family, along with a handful of other warehouse workers who'd become friends. Amara's aunt brought half the neighborhood, and the celebration was loud and joyful and exactly what they'd wanted. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, Devin raised his hand. The crowd went silent. Malik's heart stopped. Then Devin said in a clear voice, I object to waiting any longer. Can they kiss now? Laughter rippled through the gathering. The officiant grinned and skipped to the end. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Malik pulled Amara close and kissed her as their family cheered. When they broke apart, both grinning, she whispered, We made it. We made it, he agreed. The reception was a blur of dancing and cake and speeches that made everyone cry. Robert toasted to new beginnings and blended families. Patricia told stories about Janelle that made everyone laugh and thanked Amara for bringing joy back into Malik's life. Malik's mother declared that she'd known from the beginning this was meant to be, which made Malik roll his eyes affectionately. As the sun set and the party wound down, Malik found himself standing at the edge of the gathering, watching Amara dance with both kids. She spun them in circles, laughing as they shrieked with delight, and he was struck by how far they'd all come. 3 years ago, he'd been drowning, just surviving, barely holding on, convinced that mere existence was the best he could hope for. Now he had this: a wife who challenged him to be better, kids who filled his days with noise and mess and unconditional love, a future that stretched out with possibilities instead of just obligations. You look happy, son. Malik turned to find Robert beside him, hands in his pockets, watching the same scene. I am. Happier than I've been in a long time. Janelle would be glad. She never wanted you to be alone. Robert paused. I'll admit, when you first told us about Amara, I was angry. Felt like you were replacing our daughter. But watching you now, seeing how you are with your new family, I understand. You're not replacing anyone. You're just choosing to keep living. Thank you for giving us your blessing. It meant everything. Thank Janelle. She's the one who taught us that love doesn't divide. It multiplies. The more people we let in, the more love there is to go around. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Amara convince Malik's mother to join the dance. The old woman protested but allowed herself to be pulled into the circle, laughing as the kids showed her their moves. Better get in there before they wear themselves out without you, Robert said with a smile. Malik joined his family on the makeshift dance floor, pulling Amara into his arms while the kids danced circles around them. She fit against him perfectly, her head on his shoulder, swaying to music that was too fast for slow dancing, but they did it anyway. What are you thinking about? She murmured. How lucky I am. How none of this was in the plan. But it's better than anything I could have planned. Life's funny that way. Hey, Amara. Yeah? I love you. Thank you for showing up in the rain that night. Thank you for not giving up on us when it got hard. Thank you for choosing this crazy, complicated, beautiful life with me. She pulled back enough to look at him, her eyes shining. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with your heart even though it had been broken, for building this family with me. He kissed her there under the string lights as their kids cheered and their families watched and the autumn breeze carried away the last remnants of who they'd been before they found each other. They'd both been so alone, drowning in responsibilities and grief and the exhausting work of surviving. Two single parents who'd convinced themselves that stability was enough, that asking for more was selfish. But they'd been wrong. They'd deserved more all along, deserved partnership and passion, and the terrifying leap of faith it took to trust someone with your whole heart. They deserved this messiness, this joy, this imperfect, beautiful thing they'd built together from loneliness and hope. The dance ended and the kids demanded cake. Amara laughed and went to cut slices while Malik helped his mother to a chair. The party continued around them, music and laughter and the comfortable chaos of people who loved each other gathering to celebrate. Later that night, after the guests had left and the kids were asleep in their new shared bedroom, Malik and Amara stood in the kitchen of their apartment washing dishes side by side. It was mundane and domestic and absolutely perfect. Think we can handle this? Amara asked, handing him a plate to dry. The new jobs, the new city, blending two families? Honestly, I have no idea. We'll probably mess up constantly, fight about stupid things, struggle to balance everything. He set down the plate and turned to her. But we'll do it together, and that makes all the difference. Together, she agreed, kissing him softly. I like the sound of that. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence, then checked on the kids one more time before heading to their own room. Devin and Zoe were tangled together in Zoe's bed, having abandoned their own sleeping arrangements in favor of the comfort of closeness. Malik adjusted the blanket over them and pressed a kiss to each small forehead. In their bedroom, Amara stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Malik came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "Not a single one. You?" "Just that we didn't find each other sooner. We found each other exactly when we needed to. Neither of us was ready before." She was right. 3 years ago, Malik had been too broken to see possibilities beyond survival. Amara had been too busy proving herself to let anyone in. They'd needed time to grow, to heal, to become people capable of building something healthy and whole. "I love our life," Malik said. "The messy, complicated, imperfect reality of it. I love waking up next to you and arguing about whose turn it is to make coffee. I love helping with homework and negotiating bedtimes and all the mundane magic of family." "The mundane magic," Amara repeated. "I like that. Because it is magic, isn't it? The way we found each other, the way everything fell into place, even when it seemed impossible. The way you showed up at a hospital at 3 a.m. because you couldn't stand for me to be alone. The way you fought for us, even when it would have been easier to give up." They stood at the window, wrapped in each other, watching their new city sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Unpacked boxes and unfamiliar routes and the learning curve of merging 2 households into one cohesive unit. There would be arguments and adjustments and moments of doubt. But there would also be Sunday mornings with coffee and laughter. Dinner table conversations where everyone talked over each other. Goodnight kisses and inside jokes, and the particular comfort of being known completely by another person. There would be love. Messy, imperfect, hard-won love that they chose every single day. And that, Malik thought as he held his wife and listened to their children breathing softly in the next room, was more than enough. It was everything. He'd survived 3 years in the wilderness of grief and loneliness. He'd learned to carry the weight alone because he'd had no choice. But he didn't have to carry it alone anymore. He had Amara, his partner in all things. He had Devin and Zoe, building sibling bonds that would last a lifetime. He had his mother nearby, an extended family, who'd chosen to support rather than stand in the way. He had a life worth living instead of just enduring. The rain that had brought them together felt like a lifetime ago, but Malik could still remember standing in that parking lot, soaked and exhausted, accepting a ride from his boss because he had no other options. He'd been so certain that survival was the best he could hope for. He'd been wrong. So beautifully, wonderfully wrong. Amara turned in his arms, her face illuminated by the city lights filtering through the window. "What are you thinking about?" "The night we met, how lost I was. How you showed up exactly when I needed someone, even though I didn't know I needed it. I needed you too. I just didn't know it yet. We saved each other." "No," Amara corrected gently. "We chose each other. That's different. Better." She was right. Salvation implied passivity, being rescued by forces beyond your control. But what they'd built required active choice. Every single day choosing to show up, to communicate, to fight for their relationship even when it was hard. That was the real magic. Not the fairy tale beginning, but the conscious decision to keep building long after the initial spark had settled into something steadier and more sustainable. "Come to bed," Amara said, taking his hand. "Tomorrow's going to be busy. We should rest while we can." They climbed into bed together, fitting into each other's spaces with the ease of practice. Outside, the city hummed with late-night traffic and distant sirens. Inside, everything was still and safe and exactly where it needed to be. Malik closed his eyes and felt Amara's breathing slow into sleep. In the next room, he could hear the soft sounds of children dreaming. Under his pillow, the wedding band Amara had placed on his finger earlier that day caught the moonlight. He'd spent 3 years in the darkness, convinced the sun would never rise again. But here, in this moment, wrapped in love and possibility and the mundane magic of family, Malik finally understood something fundamental. The sun had been there all along. He just needed someone to help him see it. And now, with Amara beside him and their children safe and their future stretching out in front of them full of promise, he could see it clearly. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living, and that made all the difference in the world.